Welcome to the Power of Design podcast. My name is Jack Osa. I'm an architect, born and raised in Colombia, South America. Years ago, I migrated to the United States to follow my dreams, and today, I'm the founder and principal of Osa Studio, a multidisciplinary architectural design firm in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this podcast, we talk about design, business, creativity, and the inspiration we need to create an exciting and powerful built environment. In today's episode of the Power of Design podcast, I'm talking to Mike Estramonte. Mike is the founder and CEO of Starmount Healthcare and Starmount Healthcare in Charlotte, North Carolina. As a focused and risk-taking entrepreneur, he has a passion to provide underserved communities access to affordable healthcare. During our conversation, we talk about his personal story, business impact in the community, and what does it take to grow and run a successful mission-driven organization. This is my conversation with Mike. Mike, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Mike, based on your experience in the last 15 years growing a company, what would you say is the most important skill an entrepreneur must have in order to consistently scale a business?
The most important, there's a lot. Off the top of my head, I think about, being flexible, being able to adapt, being persistent. There's so many. I always do go back to just being flexible and being able to adapt to the circumstances when an opportunity comes up, making sure that you're prepared. What's that old saying? When luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
That's right.
I'm a firm believer in that. I do believe there's some people are just more lucky than others.
Yeah.
But at some point, if you haven't done the pre-work and are willing to take risk, risk is another big one.
Yeah.
I never really looked at many of the things I've done as risky, just because a lot of times you're just betting on yourself.
Sure.
So maybe there's an overly optimistic side of me, but
right.
Persistence. Taking the setbacks, being able to adapt, and move forward the next day with whatever the project's going to be.
Sure. What do you think are like specific, thought processes or activities that make a person being flexible? Is it like maybe you have like a natural reaction to do something and like, okay, no, I'm going to solve it a different way, or taking a step, being uncomfortable? What does flexibility mean to you?
It's a good question. I'm not the type of person to dwell on things long. People say I don't hold grudges.
That's a good one. Yeah.
And I think I always say I don't have a good memory, so that's probably one of the reasons I don't. I have a good memory, but I just don't hold grudges because sometimes it doesn't feel like it's useful.
Sure.
But I think as far as being able to be flexible and adapt, when you have that type of memory that causes you not to focus on the negative, it allows you to think of the opportunities that are ahead of you. So I think those kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, man, that's critical, because I will think that when you have that mindset, it gives you momentum, right? You keep feeling it, and it's very easy to feel setbacks. Like, one of the things I struggle with is sometimes if I make a mistake, I'm too hard on myself, and I'm just kind of dwelling on something that I gain nothing by just rethinking the situation, thinking what I could have done better. Once you think about it for a little bit, I think they say it is like 90 seconds. You can feel bad for 90 seconds.
Yeah.
And once you recognize, all right, next time I'll do something different. But it's hard. That's something I'm working on myself to just let it go, because there's not much you can do.
Yeah. I've always taken the attitude, we have to learn from our mistakes, but, we also have to learn from our successes. And I'm a big believer in putting things down on paper. Yeah. So especially when it's something that you've botched up or you could have done better, writing it out, charting it out as to where the where the ball was dropped, where you could, and once it's on paper, it kind of frees you of it.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that over the years. And when I don't do that activity, how then there are some times when I guess I do dwell on things. It's because I don't do that when I don't do that activity. So,
Yeah, that's a good point, because I tend to put things on paper, but only the good things, right? Your goals and things you want to do, but not kind of like, unloading things that, you don't want to hold in your mind anymore.
That's perfectly put.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice. Mike, tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in upstate New York, farm country. I actually worked on farms when I was a kid.
Wow.
And first job was when I was 12. Very rarely did I ever work for someone else, have a W-2. My first job was always mowing lawns and painting houses. I had my own paint crew all the way through high school and college. And no, I had two great parents, both school teachers, two older brothers, and very competitive with my brothers. Still, even at 46, still competitive with those two. But that's helped in a lot of ways. But no, just a really great upbringing in a very beautiful part of the country. And moving to Charlotte was like moving to the city for me.
Oh, wow.
So I've been down here for it's been 22 years now.
Nice. Oh, wow. Yeah, I moved from Colombia. I came to Charlotte in 2001.
Oh, around the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So almost 22 years.
Gosh. No.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Charlotte's changed a lot in those years.
I know. Yeah. It's amazing how has changed. And, I remember, early 2000s, like one of the first things, I actually came to Atlanta first because my cousins live there. And I had another cousin that was living in Charlotte. So I came with my younger brother. He had graduated from high school, and I graduated from architecture school. So our cousin that lived in Charlotte said, "Hey, why don't you guys come for a weekend, just visit, just see the city?" And we said, "Sure." So my brother and I came for a weekend, and we never left.
Oh,
yeah, 20 years.
Yeah. So you had your architectural degree before you moved here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I studied architecture in Colombia. But when I saw Charlotte, especially at that time, I just fell in love with the city. It was, I remember the drive from the airport to her apartment. It was in Pineville, but they said, "Hey, we're just going to drive around uptown so you guys kind of see the city." And, then we go to apartment. And I remember during that trip, it was probably an hour. And I look at my brother, I said, "We're not leaving." Yeah. I was so in shock because, we grew up in Bogota that has, 9 million people. It's fast, crime, dirty streets, homeless people. It's very much like New York City. It's very dense and heavy. It takes 2-3 hours to go anywhere. And when I saw Charlotte, I think the environment, it was like, oh my God, you can live like this?
It's spread out.
Yeah. And it feels my personality because I tend to be more calm and introvert, and it just felt good. I'm like, okay, I'm staying here.
No, that's
yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. And you probably, from an architectural standpoint, saw a city that was on the brink of becoming something else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was very fun. So you moved to Charlotte, and tell me about your experience here.
At first, I graduated. I'm a chiropractor by trade. I haven't practiced it's been almost 10 years. Still have chiropractic clinics.
Yeah.
But I started working as a chiropractor on the west side of Charlotte, and immediately recognized what took me to present day today is all the healthcare inequities that occur in a city. From that point, I did a lot of service for the chiropractic profession. I served on the board, the association board, the licensing board. I just about held every position you could hold to be a volunteer.
Yeah.
And then it got to a certain point where after I'd had three offices, I started looking for what was next to do. And that's when, I realized that because of the healthcare inequities, anytime as a chiropractor I tried to make a referral for somebody that needed medical care, even if it was just diabetes management or hypertensive management, it was very difficult to find people that were seeing me that didn't have insurance, or if they were Medicaid recipients, to make that referral in a timely manner. So I said, it would be great to find a medical doctor to, kind of partner with, and try to figure out a way to put a clinic in what are considered to be historically marginalized communities.
Yep.
And and scale it and try to come up with a model that can work long term, and building, beautiful facilities, modern, clean, safe, well lit, and being available, not just, say banking hours, but being available, on the evenings and on the weekends, because that's when, a lot of the people in those communities can only get to the doctor.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So what do you think was the thing that made you be committed to that mission? Because it was a need that you saw in the community.
Mhm.
Why did you feel so identified, and you made your own personal
Yeah.
task to address that?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is just the challenge of it. It was a project.
Yeah.
With the way I've been told that my mind works, as long as I have a project to do, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And this just seemed like a good one, because it was a need for the community. So I think that's what really drove me. It was I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I had to learn a lot on the way. Imagine it was trying to find a medical doctor to partner with that could really engage in the clinical protocols and the workflows, so I could truly just focus on management and making sure that the infrastructure was built properly to support from human resources, accounting, marketing, all the necessary things that go on behind the scenes to make
Yeah.
it to make a practice work.
So tell me about StarMed today. Who do you work with? Well, who are your clients?
Mhm.
Who do you engage with?
Sure. It's funny to think it's been less than 3 years, just about 3 years now, that we opened the first StarMed location,
Mhm.
and it took off quickly. Like I said, it was 7 days a week, open in the evenings, and within the first year we had, I think it was over 8,000 patients walk through our doors,
Wow.
and it was a complete mix of 50% were coming for primary care needs, like, diabetes management, hypertension management, and the other 50% were coming in for urgent care needs, whether it was respiratory illnesses or they needed some suturing, so it was kind of exactly what I thought it would be.
Yeah.
The biggest challenge with that style of practice, I learned very quickly, was staffing. Finding staff that wanted to work on the weekends, work in the evenings, providers that were, whether it's the advanced care providers that had the training to be able to see somebody for a primary care condition, but could also see somebody for an urgent care situation. They're out there. They're just not as prevalent as people that like to specialize in one or the other.
Right.
So it was really trying to find the staffing and meet those challenges that was really an unanticipated challenge. And then, just finding medical assistants. I've realized very quickly there was, in the recruiting process, there's such variation within finding certified medical assistants. You can find some absolute amazing rock stars and some people that don't have much experience at all.
Yeah.
So there's so much variation. But, we learned very quickly. And I thought we would, be successful within a few months, and we were patient volume wise, but because we knew this would happen, that 30% of our patients were coming with Medicaid, which doesn't have the greatest highest reimbursement.
Sure.
And another 20 to 25% didn't have insurance. So we just had to figure out a way to make sure that we had a projected plan to make sure that we were covering our bills, paying our expenses.
Sure.
And we were just about to figure it out, and it wasn't going to be easy, and there wasn't going to be a lot of margin. And I don't think, traditionally speaking, there's anywhere in the country there's a lot of margin for primary care offices.
Yep.
And maybe it's a flaw of our healthcare system. It is a flaw of our healthcare system that primary care doctors and practitioners, providers aren't rewarded for the ground level primary care services, because those, if they're managed well, will keep people out of the, so.
Sure.
Sorry, I got off on a little bit of a tangent.
No,
Jack,
that's perfect.
But no, it's exciting. Hopefully to continue to create these systems and procedures. But when COVID hit, I think that's kind of where we were going with this.
Yeah.
We had opened up another location on the east side. We were just getting that off the ground, and then it was a random decision towards the end of 2019 to change the lab certification. We at the time we were what they call a CLIA waived lab, and we said, you know what if we were able to offer more services in house? And we so a decision was made to change the status of our lab to a high complexity lab and order the necessary equipment
Yeah.
to serve the community with faster test results and being able to do it in house. It did also allow us to be able to make do things at a lower cost than some of the larger labs would do for people that had a hard time affording services.
Right.
So that decision was made in the end of October, 2019, and then with what we saw what was happening coming through China, it was at the end of January, I believe. I was in talks with somebody from our lab, and I said, if this comes over here, what do we need to test for this? And they said a thermal fissure, and so we put our order in right away. It didn't. The equipment didn't come until May, and by the time we validated it, really we didn't start testing in significant numbers until June. But it was those turns of event. I mean, and we even back in March, middle of March, once we realized that COVID was here of 2020, we pulled all of our team in and said, how can we be there for the community? What's going to be needed? We're obviously going to need testing in the community. So we created all the workflows and processes, especially at our Tuckasegee site, which was our busiest, how we were going to do car drive-throughs and how we were going to acquire PPE. I mean, we couldn't get PPE at the time. So we were sending staff out to Sherwin-Williams and AutoZone and Home Depot to buy the N95 masks that people would use for insulation or painting, spray painting. So we and we ended up giving a lot of those away to the hospital system because we got more than we actually needed initially. So I know a lot of ED doctors that we donated. We just gave them away, and we kept whatever we needed for testing. And and that was kind of the beginning of our. It was just a gradual. We were testing maybe 5-10 people a day. Then it caught on. It was 100 people a day, and then the next thing, at the height of this, we were testing over 7,000 people in a day.
Oh wow!
So
that's crazy.
Yeah. We never. Not in our wildest dreams did we ever think it would turn into something like that.
Wow. So why do you think the traditional healthcare system is not addressing that gap in the community?
That's a good question. I think there's a lot of reasons. I just don't think. There's incentives for providers to go out into underserved areas and provide care. I just don't know if the incentives are good enough, and the reimbursements are just lower. It's and if you're a provider and you have your bills, your student loans to pay, you have to go where you're paid the most to make sure that you're providing for your family.
Yeah.
So, a lot of this just goes towards the health inequity. We pay our staff above fair market value so they can come in, and it's challenging. I don't know how else to put it other than with the reimbursements being so low in underserved areas, you really have to be creative in how you pay your expenses.
Yeah.
And get quality individuals to deliver the care. So I think you asked what the barrier is.
Yeah.
I think I have to say it's bluntly, it's probably economics.
Yeah. Do you think part of the problem comes from even the education when people come out of school with these massive student loans? So of course they're after more money so they can pay the loans.
Well, no, I'll tell you, like, my experience has been providers definitely have the heart of wanting to serve in underserved areas or places. That's why they got into healthcare. So they want to take care of, but when it comes down to, if I go work for this system, I can make this versus this. So that's why I think there truly is a model out there, and I think we have it down here. That if you can manage to pay your providers and your staff well, and figure out creative ways to make up that gap that you otherwise would have had in a different area, you can make up for that healthcare inequities and have those clinics actually be treated like anywhere else.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think also is part of, maybe sometimes people don't realize that they they have the opportunity to work for a mission-driven business,
Mhm.
which it's a lot more fulfilling as a person than just working for a large corporation
Mhm.
where you don't even realize the impact you're having. And sometimes that's not explained,
Mhm.
or nobody shows you that.
Yeah.
It's like you just make more money here, make more money here, which is it's okay. We all want to provide for our families, but the fact that when you see the impact of what you're doing,
Mhm.
and you feel it and you're closer to it, it just drives overall fulfillment with not only your career but your life.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I was really something you just said cued me into one of my mentors, Dr. Fletcher Keith. He passed away over 10 years ago now. Incredible individual. He sincere heart of gold. He truly loved his patients. And one thing I would notice, in the 2 years that I worked in the same office as him, it didn't matter. I mean, he treated people would come in that were CEOs of the major banks here in town, but people would also come in that were below the poverty level, and he treated every single person the same. And he spent the same amount of time in the room. He had the same types of conversation. He just and I mean, you know, I was so fortunate to come right out of school to actually have somebody not just to learn the mechanics of how to actually, perform, a chiropractic adjustment
Yeah.
and how to make sure that you're diagnosing x-rays correctly and things of that nature, but how to actually just deliver genuine care from the heart. And
Yeah.
so I was really fortunate to see that as a model coming straight out of school.
Oh, sure. And I will say that's the competitive advantage you have in the marketplace because, as you said, most healthcare professionals, they get into healthcare because they have that vocation
Mhm.
to help and, use their skills to help others. But they don't know there are other levels to do that in a deeper way,
Mhm.
more meaningful.
Yeah.
I see most people don't do.
No, I'd say my experience is most physicians, they're not getting into the profession for the money. They're
Hmm.
doing it because they truly, they might have the intellect and the drive and the passion to cure and help the human body, but they just truly want to help people. There's always the exceptions, of
Yeah,
course, out there, but I do think that's a majority. At least that's what I've seen since in the last few years.
sure.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
So let's talk about your role. What are you doing today? Leading this organization. What kind of things do you focus on? How do you see the future of the organization?
Mhm.
What are your plans?
It's multiple. What I would love to do is, obviously Starmount's the management company that I run. If somebody said to me a while back that you're not a healthcare management company, you're a logistics company.
Yeah.
You figure out how to solve problems and put protocols and workflows in place. And I kind of thought about it. I'm like, geez, they're right. We could really do a lot of different things. But I do think we're staying, as we come out of COVID and, we've performed nearly 1 million COVID tests, well over 500,000 vaccinations. We've done a lot of monoclonal antibody treatments, I think almost 50,000 at this point. As we come out of COVID related services, the passion is to go back into primary care. As I said, it's not very remunerative, but there's a huge need for it.
Yeah.
And I'd love to be able to create a model where some of the funding comes from the payers, some of the funding comes from government, but if I had to say a third, if we could find private companies to make charitable donations to organizations that can pull primary care off on the ground floor level, and I don't think it's just limited to primary care. You could do the same model with behavioral health and other services. I think that's the first thing we want to tackle as an organization, is just making sure that wherever we can, whether it's here in Mecklenburg County or in other areas of the state, produce a playbook or SOP that can be replicated anywhere in the country, and we could share it with whoever wants to do it. So if there's other healthcare entrepreneurs out there that say, you know what, there's a way I can go in and do this, and we can give them a pathway to do it. So that's one of the goals.
Yeah.
Non-clinical, I have a lot of, the Blessing Foundation was our nonprofit we formed 4 years ago, and it's named after my mother. Her last name was Blessing, so it's not a religious organization per se. But my mother, she's the type of lady who goes to church every day. But she was a third grade teacher and then a special reading teacher for years, and she had such a love for kids, and especially kids that just were, coming up from disadvantaged backgrounds. And so the idea for our Blessing Foundation was initially to create a tutoring center for kids that didn't have easy access to tutoring after school, and trying to staff it with, so that, like I said, that was the initial vision of the Blessing Foundation. And we're going to get back there someday. I want to create an after school program, building something that we can bring kids in, whether it be for tutoring or just making sure that they're in a safe place while they, wait for their parents to get off work or whoever their caregiver is. So that's something. But really right now, the Blessing Foundation, we want to focus on making sure that we're addressing healthcare inequities and plugging ourselves in wherever we can support, whether it's the hospital systems, the counties, not doing things that they necessarily don't want to do, but things that maybe are a little more difficult for those entities to do, where we're a little bit smaller, a little bit more nimble, a little bit more maybe entrepreneurial. We're happy to use those strengths as an asset to the community.
Nice. What do you do for your own self? Because this is not an easy task. I know, just driving, a business and organization, facing, hundreds, thousands of decisions every day. There's a lot of pressure. I know that's not easy. How do you keep yourself, healthy, happy, energized, engaged, growing, learning? What kind of things do you do for your own self?
Well, first of all, I have an amazing partner, Alana. She's just incredible. I have two teenage boys, which you expect from two teenage boys. They're great. So I take relationship wise, definitely take care of myself. I'm very spiritual. I'm a firm believer in a higher power. But and then physically, I'm up every morning between 5:30 and 6, and I work out. I do everything from cardio, weightlifting, yoga every morning, and then I'll do I have a cold plunge tank at home that I jump in for 3 minutes at 48 degrees. So that gets me going every morning. But no, as far as and one very integral part of it is I do receive coaching, therapy, counseling, whatever people want to call it. I go on a regular basis twice a month, and it's just a great way to make sure that I stay on track with everything from my moral compass to make sure that I'm not BSing myself about anything. Right. And so I mean, I give a lot of credit to my whatever you want to call him, my therapist coach for the last 5 years. Has just been an amazing guide for me, and I'm a big believer in coaching. I've had business coaching over the years. I've had life coaching over the years, but I think that absolutely some people say that it doesn't work for them. I'm one of those people that I don't know where I'd be without it.
Sure.
So
yeah, and it's more of sometimes. The information that they give you is not this big secret. You can probably find online a lot of good practices, but when you hear something from somebody you trust, I think that's a perfect example. Is not only about the message, but it's about the messenger.
Mhm.
It makes a big difference.
Yep.
And then the recipient of that messenger, you if you take action,
Mhm.
that becomes a reality for you.
Yeah.
A lot of
Mhm.
people say, oh yeah, no, this person is only selling smoke or whatever. But
Mhm.
if I take action on those things, I
Mhm.
will see the results
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah. And it's also good to have somebody holding you accountable.
Yeah.
There's patches in your life where you can hold yourself accountable and push yourself, but whenever you have a coach, I love it when they tell me, they're like, I want you to read these 2 books in the next month.
Yeah.
Because I got to the point, I feel like I've gotten to the point in life where I don't have as many mentors as I used to.
Mhm.
And I think that's a natural progression as we get older.
Yeah.
So coaches sometimes take the place of that, where
Right.
they can hold you accountable for things that you want to achieve. And I love that part of it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I started my business 5 years ago,
Mhm.
and I started just on my own, basically freelancing with my computer,
Mhm.
and since I'm an introvert, I don't really have a problem being on my own for
Mhm.
days or months.
Yeah.
But I quickly realized that I started feeling very lonely
Mhm.
because I don't have anybody to bounce ideas with.
Mhm.
You need to make a lot of decisions, and you're never 100% sure.
Mhm.
And sometimes I will share with my wife or friends, but they're not in it with you,
Mhm.
so it's
Yeah.
still a different perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I quickly realized I need to start surrounding myself with people that have done what I want to do,
Mhm.
have more experience in other areas,
Mhm.
and also paying for that expertise, because whatever I'm paying, I can multiply that 10 or 100 times if I put it into practice.
Yeah, I mean, you just said it perfectly. I mean, and sometimes coaching can be expensive, but sometimes it takes one idea
Yes.
and or execution upon that idea that a coach can help you with, that can even that out in a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also we know ourselves too much, that we like to keep ourselves in our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So every time there is like a wild idea, you quickly kill the idea because, oh no, too
Yeah.
much, too hard.
Mhm.
And I feel that's one of the things that I really value and appreciate from my wife, because man, if it wasn't for her, I'll be in a desk working for somebody else.
Mhm.
But she believes in me more than I do.
Yeah.
And that's so helpful, because she's all the time like breaking those barriers in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
She's more of a risk taker than I am,
Mhm.
but we have a really good mix, because there's some areas that I'm stronger, but I definitely value. And
Mhm.
sometimes I realize that I get uncomfortable when she tells me things, and I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, but she's right.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, it's great having that in a partner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate. It's funny you said something about comfort zone, and I have an incredible team that works with me. I mean, when I tell you, I could never take any. I feel weird taking any credit for anything that this organization has accomplished, just because I know how much work has gone on down this hallway and throughout the testing sites and the clinics. But one of the things that I've been told on a regular basis, people say I'm not comfortable unless I'm making other people uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And just continually just trying to push. But one of the things I've learned over the years with pushing people out of their comfort zone, is you just have to be really nice about it,
Right.
and do it with thoughtfulness, intention, and because some people don't want, like, I mean, they grasp at whatever they can to stop being from
Right.
pushed out of that zone. But man, your best freedom exists when you get out of that.
Yes.
When you cross over that. So I've seen some amazing transformations. Some of the people that have worked with me over the years. Initially, when someone left, I was bummed about it. But now, if somebody moves on to something else, I celebrate,
Yeah.
them, and I hope that their experience with me and our organization has helped them grow. It's such a different mindset, and it's more of a relaxing mindset to have.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember probably the first year of my business, man, I was going crazy because the pressure,
Mm-hmm.
everything you have to, all the expenses, the
Mhm.
clients, everything that needs to happen. And I started getting very nervous very fast. And I'm like, this is not gonna change.
Mhm.
I mean, the only thing I can change is my attitude toward these things.
Mhm.
And I used to take things like very serious and personal. I'm like, I don't do it anymore now. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm providing a service with the best value and passion that I want, and that's what I transmit with my branding and my marketing.
Mhm.
Whoever wants it, pay for it, and
Mhm.
if you don't want it, s- that's fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't have to work with everybody else. There's some people that are better match for others.
Mhm.
Sometimes, and this just happened recently. I started a project with a business, and I realized in the middle of the project we're not a good match.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong. Their communication style is very different to my communication style.
Mhm.
But I feel very comfortable to say, hey, I just realized we're not a good match. So
Mhm.
I would love to stop right here, and
Yeah.
anything you can help me. But I feel very happy to do
Mhm.
that because I feel free.
Mhm.
Like, okay, I'd rather free up money for people that are aligned with our thinking, so
Yeah.
we can just keep going.
Yeah. How do you, as owner of a business, because this is probably something I do struggle with. I say it, at the beginning of the podcast, we were talking about, not holding grudges, but
Yeah.
when you feel like you get unjustly accused or, whatever, it's like that you've done something wrong that you didn't do wrong, or maybe it was something you ended up doing wrong, but you didn't have the wrong intention.
Yes.
And whether it's an employee of yours, whether it's a customer of yours, whether it's it could be the news media, whatever
Yeah.
it comes down to, that for me is something that I have a hard time. I guess so. It's not the essence of a grudge. It's more of the essence of of somebody that just you take it to heart when you feel like you're not doing something wrong.
Yes.
And so how do you handle those?
Well,
those
man,
issues?
it's not easy
Mhm.
because when, let's say, an incident happens with, they happen all the time where you're exactly what you're describing. I don't sleep well for at least 2 or 3 days because my mind keeps thinking about that. And it's just like I'm trying and I keep like going over it.
Mhm.
And especially one of the things that I realize it hurts me is when people think I did something wrong or I had a wrong intention
Mhm.
when I know I'm not.
Mhm.
Like, I'm trying to look out for you,
Mhm.
but they don't see it.
Mhm.
And there is no way to really
Yeah.
demonstrate it.
Yeah.
But we can't control what people think about us.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Completely impossible.
Mhm.
So there is a point where we just need to give up. And I think what I'm realizing is start prioritizing. Number one is, how do I feel about myself?
Mhm.
I know I'm not what they think I am. I know I'm not what they're saying. And my organization is not that.
Mhm.
And I cannot control it. They
Yeah.
can think whatever they want.
Because I do feel like that's something, when it takes up your mental bandwidth, it puts you in a non-growth mindset.
Yeah.
And some of it, it's a matter of having thick skin, but some of it's also a matter of, and some people are just better at letting things like that not bother them. But I think there's a yang for every yang. Like if you're
Yes.
one of those individuals that just doesn't care, then it shows up in other aspects.
Sure.
So yeah, just trying to find the balance. I think that's one of the things that I've really grown with this past year is just with the volume of services we've gone up. We're still serving most everybody in a timely manner, but when you scale up this quickly, and there's always going to be that same common denominator of whether it's a lab that didn't get done in a timely manner.
Yeah.
We take everything personal. We want to
Sure.
make sure that
Oh, yeah.
everything's done. So it's hard to let anything go. Or when people are waiting in a line for 3 hours to get a test. I mean, I'd sit in my office and look across the window, and I had to remember we're in 50 different sites a day. I can't
Yeah.
possibly, so, but yeah, I think that's always a challenge, but it's a double-edged sword at the same time. So,
Yeah, because the more impact you're having, the more positive impact, and the bigger the impact, the more negative things are gonna come back at you. So sometimes I realize when something negative happens, it's a sign that I'm doing the right thing, because the impact is growing. There is more people involved in this thing. So it's a huge net, and anything could fit in there. That's one of the things that I'm very passionate about. Branding. We do a lot of brand design, and I really think your brand and your not only your personal but your business brand is a way to repel people that you don't want to do business with, because they're not aligned with how you think and behave, and also attract the people that you want to do business with and that you want to have in your team. So being very clear, transparent, and have a style of communication that is very direct and easy. That helps a lot, because sometimes brands become so wordy and there are all these things that it's just a veil. You don't really see through it.
Yeah.
You just need to be simpler and clear communication, and that's what's gonna get you there.
No, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So Mike, what would you think it's the future of Starmount and StarMed, let's say in 10, 15 years?
I think it's a little bit of what I was saying before. I think we're excited just to look for wherever the holes are in services that are needed for the community. And focusing on where there's inequities. I think that's a large force driving. That what's driving our passion. But honestly, wherever we can add. Wherever we can go in and solve a problem that's being hard that people can't figure out, I think that's what brings us the most pleasure and excitement.
There's going to be plenty of opportunities.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. And, most of it being centered around healthcare is fine. But then the non-clinical side of things, the idea of even doing a community resource center someday where we can actually teach families how to budget properly, how to shop, grocery shop and make healthy choice selections. And maybe it's integrated with some clinical and non-clinical things. That's really where I think I would, I would never retire.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't ever plan on retiring. I can't even possibly think of it. But if I could go in and teach something to, a class, when I'm 70 years old or 80 years old, I would still love to be able to do stuff like that.
Well, that's amazing. Well, Mike, thank you so much for your time today. I'm really, impressed and excited about, what you're doing. I really admire, your career, what the impact you're having in the community. And, I look forward to stay in touch and, if you need me to help you with anything, I'll be glad to work with you.
Well, I wondered, you didn't ask me about it during the thing, but I'm excited to work about our Sugar Creek project.
Sure.
There's that really is going to become our flagship location, and with you doing the architectural design for that property, I'm having some fun, the thought of working together to get on that project, because we're going to mix in a little bit of everything. We're going to do everything from a sliding scale clinic to urgent care to rehabilitation to regenerative medicine, and not just, PRP and stem cells, but like what I consider to be true regenerative medicine, which is education and making sure that we're doing all the advanced stuff. And there's so many cool things going on in the world of regenerative medicine right now. They're growing cartilage, and so I want to the project that you're we're building together. I think that's I wanted to make sure I mentioned it during this, because I'm so excited to continue working on it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mike. So have a good one.
All right, you too.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review if you like this content, and find us online at thepowerofdesignpodcast.com. I invite you to join my mission to become a better version of yourself through the power of design.